outside the DFW area. I facilitate and lead the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. I've been doing that since 2007. And I'm a member of the practice interview team, and I've been conducting interviews since 2017. Our speaker today, one of our two speakers today is Carol Brickell. She's a certified professional coach. And Carol, I'll let you introduce yourself and then introduce our guest. Whoop. Unmute, there we go.
There we go. Thank you, Jeff. And for a quick logistical question, Jeff, do we have until 10 minutes before the top of the hour?
Yes.
Because there's another session right after this. Okay, excellent. So thank you for that. And thank you for the great introduction, Jeff. And what I'll do is I will share my, my PowerPoint deck. We will get that going. And let me know, do you see my slides in full screen mode? Excellent, great. Good. And welcome to everyone who's taking time out of their day today. I want to welcome you. And we are going to talk about effective resumes. And as Jeff mentioned, we're using the interactive features of Zoom for this session. So to get started, if you could click on your participant box, and I'm going to do the same thing and bring it over to my other monitor. And what I'd like you to do in the participant box, there's a menu at the bottom of the participant box where you can click yes or no, and click yes if you've seen one of these sessions before about resumes, or click the red X for no if you've never seen this before, the Resume Thursday. I see a few answers. So if everyone could go to their participant box and click on yes if you've seen one of the effective resume sessions before, and click the red X if you've never seen it. Okay, good. We've got a good mix of people. And what we do every week with these sessions is we do review some basic formatting things regarding resumes, but we also bring in fresh content every week. And the discussion is always unique every week based on the questions in the audience and based on the resumes that we review. So thank you for that. And now I'd like for you to click on your chat box, and I'm going to open up my chat box as well and drag it to my other screen so I can follow along with your questions. And I see that a second person has submitted their resume. Thank you very much for that. We will save that. We will probably have time to review one resume, and we may do a second resume as well. So I am going to save that right now. When I'm looking this way, I'm looking at my second monitor that I have open. Excellent. Okay. So now what I'd like to do is give you all a chance to use the chat function. And so I'd like to ask this question and have you type in responses into the chat box. What is the best advice you've ever received about resume writing? What's the best or most valuable piece of advice that you've ever received? And thank you. We've received a third resume. I do appreciate that. We may not have time to cover that. And if we don't have time to cover your resumes during the session today, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Carol Brickell, career coach on LinkedIn. And during this pandemic summer through August, I'm offering a free coaching session to anyone who does have a need during this pandemic. And if people could go in and play with the chat function and type in the answer to this question, what's the best advice you've ever received about your resume? Got a couple of answers in the chat box already. One person says, tailor the resume to the job. Thank you, that's a great one. Keep it short and specific to the job. It's a marketing tool. It is a marketing tool, and it's a tool to help recruiters and hiring managers see that you're a great match for the job. Include only relevant content. Go back 10 years, we will talk about how to handle that. In fact, I might talk about that right now. As a recruiter, I have seen resumes that are chopped off after 10 years and they look like they're chopped off. So another option to give hiring managers and recruiters a more full picture of your background is maybe focus on your most recent 10 or 15 years and then have a new heading in your resume that says previous relevant experience. And then you can list company names and titles of previous jobs. You don't have to put the dates, but you can do that. And that provides a more full picture because otherwise it looks like you're hiding something. So, so thank you for that. And quantify the results for the projects you did. Good. Take out the objective and have a profile that describes who you are. Excellent. Write in a conversational style describing previous job roles. Yes, as long as it's in concise bullet points. Yes. And same as above, speak to each item, make it readable and leave some white space. Yes, some resume experts that I've talked to say it is important to leave that white space in your resume. And when you get advice from people regarding your resumes, if you show it to 10 different people, you'll get 12 different pieces of advice regarding resume. And today you'll hear some additional advice. And your job is to really listen to the advice and decide what works best for you. And the advice I'll be providing is based on my experience and background. And we also have a co-speaker that I will be introducing in a moment, and you can see his background as well. And so I do have 30 years of experience working in an IT firm as a hiring manager. So I've worked with hundreds of resumes and interviewed dozens of candidates, or probably hundreds of candidates. And then I retired in 2012 and took a job as a recruiter. So I've worked both in agency environments and corporate recruiting environments. So the advice I'm providing is from that perspective of being a hiring manager reviewing resumes and a recruiter. And I've worked in both agency, corporate environments, and I've placed candidates in a variety of roles: IT, HR, learning and development, sales and marketing, administrative, and a variety of different roles. And like Jeff, I volunteer every week with the Dallas Pit Crew, practice interview team. That's a great place to practice your interview skills, where we do virtual mock interviews and then provide feedback. And if you ever do want to take part in that and do a mock interview, just send an email to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to put you on the schedule and do a practice interview. Again, that's dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. And then also I went through a process last year of taking some training and going through a 70-question test and became certified as a professional career coach. And now I'd like to let our co-presenter introduce himself as well. So Aaron, we will take you off of mute. I might need Jeff's help to take you off of mute. Great. And let you introduce.
Yeah. So my name is Aaron Alanis, as you mentioned already. I currently function as the operations director at Next Step Recruiting. I really appreciate being here and have the opportunity to help out wherever I can. I certainly try to volunteer as much as I can in venues like this, but also when we have situations come into the office. So one of my passions is to help people get where they want to go. And that's exactly what one of the, doing something like this helps do that. And happy to lend my 20 years of experience in hiring and leadership. And I've been doing recruiting for over 12 years now in multiple different types of disciplines, and have had the opportunity to work with hiring managers, work with candidates, as well as our internal processes. So my perspective is similar to what Carol's is we've been on both sides of the fence, and we want to make sure we give you the best we have so that you can have the best chance to move forward. I do work with college and youth and career age individuals, and I teach leadership classes at my church and around the community whenever called upon. So I appreciate the time and the opportunity to work with you guys today.
Thank you, Aaron, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. We really appreciate it, and we always have fun co-teaching together, so thank you.
It's always
so
a good time.
It is a good time. And so here's our agenda. Are you all ready for our agenda? Hope so. The first thing we'll do is talk about applicant tracking systems and share a few pieces of information that are critical in regards to your resume. And then Aaron will talk about some of the benefits of working with recruiters. And so he'll talk about that. And then also he's prepared his top resume tips to share with you today. And then we'll walk through some key components of a resume from a formatting perspective, see if you have any questions, and then we'll move into reviewing the sample resumes that we've already received. And we will share comments regarding what we like, and then some ideas for making them even better. So we are off and running. So the first topic is a word about applicant tracking systems, or ATS systems. And these are the systems when you go online and apply for a job. And the systems are things like Taleo, iCIMS, Workday has an ATS component. Those are some examples of those systems. And the way these systems work is they extract the data from your resume, or they parse the data and put the data into different fields in their database: name, address, phone number, location, job titles, companies. They put that into a database. And so therefore, if you have special characters, boxes, special bullet points that aren't the standard bullets, but like check marks or chevron signs, that can mess up the parsing process. So we recommend, and when we've researched, the experts recommend keeping your resume clean from any extraneous formatting, because that could throw off the parsing process. The standard bullets are fine, but other characters could throw it off. It is important to make sure your resume does have keywords that align to the job description, because these ATS systems prioritize the resumes that are coming in. And I know as a recruiter, especially in the corporate environment, anytime we posted a job, there might be 200 or 300 applicants, and the system would prioritize them for me. And I still didn't have time to go through even the top 10% usually. And one way you can test to see how your resume aligns to a job description is use the online tool, jobscan.co. And you can submit your resume and a job description, and it'll tell you if you're a 30% match or an 80% match, and then you can refine your resume based on that feedback. And then also you have the opportunity to attach your resume as an attachment, and you can attach the same version, the same ATS clean version, or if you want to maintain 2 different versions of your resume for every job you apply to, you can have another version with formatting. I chose not to do that because I didn't want to spend the time formatting 2 different versions, but some people choose to do that. And then ATS systems often provide you an option to upload a cover letter. Some require you to do that. That's okay. I just wouldn't recommend spending a lot of time on these cover letters, because as a recruiter, I never had time to look at them when I was going through the list. And in a moment, Jeff will be sharing in the chat box 2 files that you can download. One that's a sample resume template based on the format we're talking about today, and also one that is a sample layout for a cover letter in the T-table format that shows the requirements and how you match the requirements. So in a moment, Jeff will be loading that. I'm gonna pause for a moment and look at our chat box. And thank you, Jeff, you've already uploaded the resume. Thank you for that. And somebody, if you're promoted, had 2 positions, same company, should you list those separately? Yes, and we will show how to do that. How do you show them? I find ATS always puts 3 positions when I show them differently. Not sure what that means. If we need to talk offline, we sure can. Okay, great. And now I'll turn it over to Aaron to talk about the next 2 slides, recruiters, and then your top tips.
So some things to know about recruiters. Of course, we're recruiters both at corporate and agency are a little different. However, they can both be great resources for you. Their main goal is to introduce you to hiring managers and help qualify you for the role. So from an agency perspective, what we're looking for is quick response. We're looking for coachability. We're looking for, of course, culture fit, and also the technical capacity to be able to work with that particular position. And from a corporate standpoint, they are also looking for technical competency, looking for personality and environment fit, and also looking for putting you in front of the managers. It's just a different approach. From an agency standpoint, there could be 3 or 4 different agencies working on a similar role, right? And so they're competing for speed to market. They're competing for getting the best candidate possible that they know. And they're looking for people to respond quickly when they do reach out to you for an opportunity. I've had many deals die because someone did not respond. They were the best candidate I had, but did not want to get their resume to me fast enough, and with the updates that we talked about. From a corporate standpoint, if you're not put into a situation where you have the ideal resume when you reach out to them, you basically, that was your one shot, right? When you reached out to that corporate recruiter. So it's important that you do kind of make that extra effort to customize your resumes. And then of course, when you do reach out to a corporate recruiter, it's important to know the job you applied to and reference numbers, so that because they typically work anywhere from 60 to 80 recs if they have a lot of positions open, and they need to have someone that is organized and appears to have their information together when they approach them. You have anything on the corporate side, Carol, that you'd like to add?
Yes, it is important to develop a good relationship when you're applying directly to a company, then a corporate recruiter calls you. Try not to step on their toes and go around them like directly to the hiring manager. You want to build a good relationship with them, because their job is to screen the candidates and then present the top 5 resumes to the hiring manager. So you want to make friends with them, and then also, take the time to ask them for feedback about the resume, and also, if you're not a match for that particular job, ask them if there might be other opportunities and express your interest in the company. So thank you.
Yeah, and from the agency perspective, just make sure you speak to your recruiter and how they like to communicate, so that you don't overwhelm them with communication. It's important most recruiters like email, but some like text, some like phone calls. I personally prefer an email or LinkedIn check-in, just to make sure that we're on the same page and moving forward. It can be somewhat overwhelming when you have several candidates and several jobs that you're working on at one time, and you want to make sure you service everyone appropriately.
Great.
All right, so my 5 tips. I had to narrow it down to 5. So, and you're going to probably hear most of this again later on, because I think we're very aligned in how we approach resumes. But keep the resume tailored to the job and related responsibilities. It's important not to put extra words there that aren't relevant to the job or to what might be around the duties of that job. Utilize keywords from the posted job description. I can't emphasize that enough. If you take a look at when you Google something for a service or a product or what have you, when you Google it, you never get past the past the first or second page. Rarely did someone even get to the bottom of the page before they found what they're looking for. It works the same way with keywords and ATSs. And those applicant tracking systems, they give you the highest match and the first, like Carol mentioned, 10%. She rarely got all the way through the first 10%, right? And so if you want a chance to be talked to, make sure that you utilize the keywords from the posted job description. We're going to I think we cover that today a little bit maybe. And then of course,
Yes.
the jobscan.io helps as well. And don't waste white space with an objective. It really is not effective. I'm not real sure. I haven't done the history lesson on that of why objectives were ever instituted. But since I've been in recruiting now over 13 years, I always erase it. So it's literally just a waste of time for you to have to come up with one. And it's not effective for the person receiving it. Including results or accomplishments that increase revenue, save money, or created efficiencies, about projects, accomplishments, anything that you put on there needs to have quantifiable results. And if you can add that on there, you're going to be more effective at getting callbacks, having examples in your interview to be able to speak to, and things like that. And finally, use concise and effective words, and always, always double check grammar, spelling, and spacing. I've had several people over the course of my career, because of their formatting or because of their detail in grammar or spelling or spacing, they didn't get the job. Seems like a really silly way to lose a job, but it certainly happens. And I think Carol and I even know of a few experiences just when we worked together that happened, and we both just shook our head like, I can't believe it.
Yes, that's right.
And we do our very best to catch as much as we can as agency recruiters, but there are times when, we miss it, but we do everything we can to try to make sure that when it gets to a client, it's been cleaned as much as possible. So just know it certainly wasn't intentional that we missed that.
So Aaron, of the resumes you've reviewed in your career, what percentage of those resumes do you think have some sort of error in them? Spelling, grammatical, even spacing errors?
Well, the last week, it's been 100%.
Yeah. Yes.
the last week. Now, probably over the course of my career, we're probably about 95%. And some of them are just silly. They just overlooked it, and you've seen it so many times, and you haven't had somebody review it, and there you go. You just
so that is absolutely critical. And Aaron, we had a question in the chat box.
Oh, sure.
Asking if resumes should be 1 pages or 2 pages. What do you think about that?
I think that it depends on the job you're applying for, A, the level of experience that you have, B, and I think 2 pages is usually solid. But if you had a specific, like an IT resume or an educational resume or even a project-based resume, I could see them going 3 and 4 pages, just because of the nature of what they're promoting and how, the level of experience that you may need in detail. But 1 to 2 pages, I wouldn't go over 2 in general, but it doesn't mean I haven't before. So okay. I think it's situational.
Yes, and I would agree with that. As I've talked with experts, two pages does seem to be the sweet spot, but there can be exceptions, like as you mentioned, for technical roles, higher education, and also the government.
That's right.
Could be longer. And then some people with a lot of experience create a 1-page executive bio, and right. That's a different type of document. So if you're thinking you want that for networking purposes or when you're doing informational interviews, you can Google different formats for executive 1-page bios, but most experienced people can't fit all their experience on 1 page, and so 2 pages is fine.
In terms of saw that question, I'm not sure if you saw it, but I remove graduation dates because unless it from they're looking for a grad and it happened yesterday, if it happened in the last 2 years. So I think it's important to remove those, especially like this person mentioned, can be sticky for an over 40 group. I remove them because I think it's not relevant.
Yeah, I would agree. I removed it from my resume, and I was hired at the age of 55 and got a job at the age of 60. So yeah, I did that as well. Good. Yeah, thanks. People can keep the questions coming through the chat box. You're welcome to do that. Good job. And now we will move into key components of a resume. And we'll be kind of referring to a resume format that I've developed over years and getting feedback from hiring managers and watching effective recruiters with resume formats. And then also when I went through my certification, they shared a format which was nearly identical. And then in the career transition workshops that are taught here in the DFW area, they use a very similar format. So it's a very standard format that hiring managers are very comfortable looking at. And these components include the heading, the summary, and key accomplishments is an optional section that you can have in your resume. And I especially see that that's effective for sales-oriented jobs where you want to show targets and achievements of numbers and that type of thing. So people that are in financial or sales roles. And then professional experience in reverse chronological order. And then if you want to show older experience or longer time ago experience, you can have previous relevant experience. And again, just list the company name and the titles, and you don't have to put the dates for those, but just to show the full picture. And then education and software skills. So to get started, Aaron, could you walk us through the first few sections of the resume, and then I'll take over when we start talking about showing results in the bullets.
Yes, of course, of course. So it's important when you do your heading that you don't put it in the quote unquote header function. And part of that's because that will be, could be ignored by the ATS parsing tool. And so you want to just put it at the top of the page, normal margins, and you typically want to center your name. It just makes it easier for the ATS to pick it up. I tell people to add their phone number and email address, and of course the best practice is to put city, state, and zip, but you do not need to put your physical address, but you do want to make sure that your email is a professional email address and that the phone number you list is a working number and that it has a professional messaging system. If not, just leave it as the default, please, because there have been several times when I've called a message to leave a message and I thought, oh, okay. Perhaps this is not the same person that's on the resume. So it's important to keep it professional and keep it simple to make sure that you are, putting your best foot forward.
And we had a question in the chat box from somebody in communications journalism. It's a rather long question. So that I think that one would be best handled in a discussion. So feel free to the person that submitted that, if you could reach out to me as a career coach. And again, during this pandemic, I'm offering a free session to anyone with a need. That looks like something we might want to talk through. So sorry to interrupt. I wanted
Yeah,
to...
no problem. No, that's good. And then session workshop. Okay. I think we're good on the questions, right?
Yes, we're good. We're good on the questions. And Jeff has
Okay.
posted where people can access information about the presentation in case people want this as a reference afterwards. So
Oh, awesome.
good feedback that people are finding value in this.
Yeah, no, I love this. The participation is awesome. Thank you guys so much. So summary is not an objective. I think I probably could not tell you this enough, that objective is just not a thing. Summary is really about how you relate to the job you're applying for, you know, and your experience. You want to include the key areas of your expertise, and you want to make sure that it's modified for each application depending on what the content of the job description is, because typically the content of the job description is what they're looking for in terms of keywords. So as long as you have modified that for that, and I would say you want to keep it between 9 and 12 areas of expertise. You don't really want to go over 12. It clutters the resume too much, and it makes it a little too busy is what I'm looking for. And so in terms of the summary, we also want to make sure that you include some of the keywords from that job description as well. And do you have anything else to add to that, Carol?
No, that's great. It's great.
All right. And so in the optional section, we talked about key accomplishments. We want to make sure that that's at the top, and you just bullet point, sweet and simple. Like this one that's in the example, it gives you exactly what happened, what the sales target was, and what year it happened. And then, of course, exceeding your goals and how many years you've done that, so you have a track record of success. It's important to list any awards there that are relevant if they're recent. If this is 2020 and you had something in 2010, might not be as relevant as something in 2015 or 2019. Not to not list it, but you want to take some discretion with that and make sure that if you didn't win any other awards before that since then, I guess it's dependent on the award, right? So, and then of course, if you have any other things on the other sides of that, in terms of accomplishments, make sure that you put the measurable results there. All right. I think this is your turn now, right?
Yeah, I can take it from here. And then the next section of the resume is your chronological experience, and you want to make it easy to read from a formatting perspective with clean bullet points. And the text for the bullet points should never be more than 2 lines. 1 line's great, 2 lines okay, and 3 lines is too much to read. And make sure that your verbs are parallel with the present. If you have a current job, things should be in the present tense, unless it's a project you've completed. So there might be occasions where it does make sense to put it in the past tense if it's something that's completed. And then definitely for older jobs that are in the past, you do want to have the verbs be in the past tense. I can't tell you how many times I see resumes where some end in ed, ing with an s, and a mixed up bunch of verbs, so keep them parallel.
I'll also add that slows down the recruiter. It slows down your agency recruiter, because if they have to stop and adjust those things, it really stops the presentation piece. So if you're looking to get a job quickly or to be presented in the top 10% of the candidates are going to be presented, it's important that you have this part done. If you don't, you'll be the second resume that the recruiter goes to. If they have 2 of equal, one similar qualified candidates, are going to go with the easiest formatted resume, just as a tip for working with recruiters.
That's right. Things move fast in the world of recruiting. And then also a little more detail for each job, you should limit it to 5 to 8 bullets. I looked at a resume today with a colleague, and there were 15 bullets, and that's just too many for a hiring manager to read. And then the bullets should focus on results, and it should not read just like a list of tasks or something from a job description. And to give you a kind of a fun way to turn your bullets into more results, I call it the so what game. I'll tell you about a real story. One time I was reviewing somebody's resume, and they had a pretty good bullet that said for one of their jobs, they developed a Visual Basic program to automate the conversion and migration of data. You know, that's pretty good, but I asked him, I said, so what? Meaning, what was the impact? What was the result? What was the benefit of doing that? And then he answered and said, well, this resulted in reducing the data migration time, it eliminated errors, and increased the stakeholder and client confidence. So he decided to rewrite the bullet and really focus on the results. So the bullet now reads, reduced data migration time by 90%, eliminated errors, and increased stakeholder confidence by developing that Visual Basic program. So it's fun to kind of play the so what game with the bullet points in your resume, especially in your most recent job. And then somebody asked the question, if you have multiple roles at a company, for the company, you want to put the entire time that you were there outright justified from 2004 to 2012. And thank you, Jeff, for annotating that for me. And then for each job, in parentheses, you can put the dates for each job. Because if you separate these and put those right justified for each job, it almost appears that you've jumped companies and it makes it look like you're a job hopper. But when you do it this way, it's a stronger resume because that shows longevity, it shows persistence, it shows that maybe you've been promoted. So it's much more strong to do it this way. And then if you happen to work for one of these companies that may have been acquired or merged and changed names, how do you handle those situations? Here are a couple different options. One is you can give the current company name and say formally the name of the company, or you can give the old company name and say it was acquired by a certain company in a certain date. So there are a couple different ways you can do that depending on your situation. And then it's important to have education and software skills. And if you don't have a bachelor's degree, maybe you went to a college for 3 years, just list the name of the college and the years you attended. Don't put bachelor's because you don't actually have that degree. I've seen many people make that mistake. So if you don't have a degree, just put the name of the university and the years that you were there, if you want to include years. And as we mentioned earlier, it's not absolutely necessary to put the years there. And software skills, it's good to put, critical software skills, especially ones that align to the requirements of the job. And if the job description says it's important to have Microsoft Office, go ahead and list it because that'll count as a keyword search. And then somebody asked how to list classes you've taken recently. And I would do that sparingly, ones that are really critical for that job. You could list them underneath in the education section. So you could list your degree and then you could say course, and it's even stronger if it's a certification, but if you could list the course names if they're really important, really relevant to the job. And if we need to talk about that further offline, we certainly can do that. And then I'd like to spend a moment talking about aligning your resume to the job description. And what I recommend doing is take a moment and study the job description. And if you're online or print off a piece of paper, really study the key words that they're looking for. And I'm going to highlight a few here just as examples. So in this particular job for a business analyst, they're looking for somebody who can document business requirements. So make sure that you reference that in your resume. They're looking for somebody that can improve processes and can work cross-functionally. Make sure you use those words. Flow charts, process flow charts, and test plans. Make sure you're updating your resume. And if they're looking for certain methodologies like Agile, make sure to list that. Software, Visual Basic or Visual Studio, make sure to list that. So I can't emphasize enough the importance of studying the job description and taking just a few moments to align the keywords to the job. And somebody asked if they should have a separate section for education and certifications. It's a personal preference. Some people list education and then certifications, or you could have a heading that says education and certifications and list both. I don't know if Aaron or Jeff have any opinions about that, or.
I typically try not to, I'm not going to say waste white space, but try not to waste white space with an additional section. I put it together. But to answer the question about the ATS, it depends. And it's going to pick up the certification tag versus the title certifications. So if you have a CPA or you have a CPP or SHRM, SCP, whatever you have, it's going to be picked up by that part is what's going to be picked up, not necessarily the word certification.
Great. And thank you so much, Aaron. And what I'm doing now is I'm pulling the resume to review. And so I'm going to share a different.
While Carol's doing that, one of the things what Aaron was just talking about is you may need to have two different resumes. You have one resume that you would send to a recruiter, but you'd have a different resume that breaks out all those sections that you would submit to an ATS system, because you want the ATS system to pick up and not confuse anything. So that's why, what you submit online isn't necessarily what you would hand to somebody or show to a recruiter.
Great. And a quick logistical check. Jeff, can you see the resume on my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, excellent. And thank you for the person that submitted this ahead of time. I do appreciate that. And so what we're going to do now is I will scroll through the resume so you can get a look at it. And we'll spend about as much time as a recruiter typically spends, looking at a resume, about 10 seconds. So I'm going to scroll through it. And then you as audience members, I'd like for you to identify things that you like about the resume and go ahead and type in some compliments into the chat box. And if you see any things that you think could be improved to enhance the resume even further, feel free to type those in as well. And so I'm scrolling through. There's a professional summary section, industry experience section, key accomplishments. This person did have key accomplishments. And then work experience with the dates out kind of right, justified, and bullet points. Going on to a third page here. And then there's some additional experience. I don't know if that's current or prior, so we'll talk about that. So if you see things that you like about this resume, feel free to type those compliments in the chat box. And if you see anything that you think you'd recommend, a couple things that I'd recommend in the header is cell phone's good, email's good. Please also add your LinkedIn profile. I'm hearing from recruiters more and more that's very important to include. And then also include your target city that you're looking for as well. And then the zip code is an optional thing. And some recruiters, some search on zip code and some don't. And then I like the fact that it's a professional summary, not an objective, like I'm seeking a job where I can grow my skills in a large company. You don't want that. You want a professional summary. And this starts off with an experienced, customer-centric, results-oriented information IT executive. And one thing I would say is I'm not clear exactly what kind of person you are, what kind of jobs you're looking for, if it's a CIO level or if it's an applications leader. I'm not sure exactly who you are at the top of the resume. I'll have to dig further to find that out. So you do want to state that up front. And even some of the recommendations I have, instead of saying professional summary, put what you are, CIO, or if that's what you are, Chief Information or Executive. And then, okay, Aaron, do you have any comments about the top part of the resume? I'll scroll down.
Yeah, I concur that I think that on the professional summary piece that it should either say CIO, VP, or technology vice president or VP technology, something along those lines, whatever your goal is, and then really kind of dig into that on the next 4 lines. Just because, and I'm not 100% sure that customers should be capitalized in that. So you might want to just double check that piece.
Yes, yeah, I would agree. That should not be capitalized, and it probably should be hyphenated. So,
yes.
Good. And then industry experience. I'm not really clear about what's the goal of this particular section. And it takes up valuable real estate at the top of your resume. And sometimes a recruiter may just look at this much. And so you want to maybe get to some of your key accomplishments and your first job. And your first or your most recent job should appear somewhere on that first page. So
I feel like the industry experience part could be better served in a maybe in part of an executive bio or more of a summary, a different document than this one.
yes.
But, I'm not sure what your thinking is of it, but I feel like all of that is basically a regurgitation of the resume to follow. And I feel like that is duplicate work.
Yes, I would agree with that. And then I like that you have key accomplishments. My worry here is it takes up too much space. And also there's subheadings that take up additional 2 lines for each area. And what I would recommend is picking out the top 3 to 5 most significant key accomplishments. And for the ones you pick, play that so what game. Like for example, this first one, it says built roadmaps to bring technology debt forward along with parallel funding plans, highlighting cost savings. I would say, okay, so what was the impact? And then start that bullet with that impact. If the impact was achieved cost savings, you could say achieved cost savings by building roadmaps. So, okay. And then somebody's asking, is the key accomplishments better placed below the job they're referring to? And you do want for each job to have bullet points regarding your accomplishments for the job. In some cases, the optional option is to have a summary key accomplishments section where you're thinking about maybe your last 10 to 15 years and your biggest accomplishments that you want to highlight, especially if you're a salesperson or a financial person where you've really achieved something and you just want to highlight it at the top of your resume. That's what the purpose of this section is. And then you're absolutely right. The bullet points for each job should highlight accomplishments. And looks like Jeff Jeff, did you have a question that came in through Facebook as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's not related to this resume. So if you want to go ahead, let's finish this up and then I'll ask it when you're done with this.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So this section, key accomplishments, I'd recommend shrinking it way down so that your work experience or your professional experience can start on that first page. And let's take a look at this. You've got the company name, but it's not in bold, but the title is. I think I would put the company name in bold, and I would put the dates on the same line as the company name, because you may have, if you've been promoted, you may have several different job titles. So you don't want that date aligned with that job title. If needed, you'd put that in parentheses next to the job title. Okay. Lead and managed. Okay, that's present tense and past tense. So you want to look at your verbs. Lead, hired. You want to make sure. Yeah,
need more results in there in that paragraph. I mean, in all those bullet points, there's not a lot of the results.
Yes.
So
It reads more like a job
tell me
description.
what you did, but not what you can do. Or,
So have fun with that so what game. Implemented idle standards across enterprise, leveraging blah, blah, blah. So what? What was the impact? What did you improve? What was the impact to the business? Like you negotiated favorable software and hardware license contracts, saved $50 million by negotiating favorable contracts. So make sure that you're highlighting the accomplishments for your bullet points. Good. And then the dates aren't really aligned very well. You want to maybe justify them. Hired and staffed and newly formed. Okay. So what? Achieved something. What did you achieve based on that staffing? You served on a disaster recovery team. Yeah, you can have fun with that game. And once again, I will say that if you want to have a discussion about your resume, you're welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn and we can set up a time on Zoom and spend some time with this. There's lots of great information. And I think there's just a few tweaks we can do to really make your resume powerful. Where it says additional experience, it makes me wonder, okay, is this experience that's going on now or was it prior? So that's why we recommend this heading here should be prior relevant experience. And then I'm not clear if these were all jobs you had, so I think this section needs to be worked on a little bit. Okay, education, BS, CI, okay. And here's an example of a degree, Bachelor of Science, and I think I would spell that out. And then also you took a CIO Leadership Essentials course. It might be good to say what institution where you taught that. Oh, maybe that was at Carnegie Mellon. So maybe I'd put that right next to it or put a space in between these so it's very clear. So that's pretty cool that you took a CIO leadership course at Carnegie Mellon. So good job for the person that submitted this. Any other final quick comment, Aaron? I think we just have 1 minute.
No, I think you covered it. I mean, I feel we're in alignment on everything you said. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, we've had fun working together. Yeah. And do you have time for that final question?
Yeah, the question Carlene asked on Facebook, what's the best way to address a big gap? i.e. I was home for a number of years raising my family. I've had employment for the last 7 years, but just wondering if I list anything during that period prior to 7 years.
Yes, and I do recommend putting that, and I'll defer to Aaron. What would be the best description or heading you would say to put in that time?
It sounds like she was raising her family. So what I've had people put in there, some people put domestic engineer, or they put family time, or sabbatical. They've done a few different things, and it really is what they're most comfortable sharing now, right? Because everyone's going to see what they're going to see, right? And so they have to decide what works for them. But I've seen sabbatical, I've seen family leave, I've seen at home raising family. I've literally writing that out. And I typically just talk to the person, find out if they've done any volunteer work during that time, if they led the PTA, or they were, the homeroom mom, or whatever they did to continue to keep themselves active in their kids' lives, or to show leadership, or continue to be productive. We put that in there as well, in addition to raising their family, right? We go ahead and put some of those volunteer activities to show that they didn't just not use their skills, right? They also contributed in other ways besides their family, which, by the way, contributing just to your family is enough.
That's great. Yeah, and so one other option I've seen people do is say community leadership, and then a couple bullet points like the PTA, things that you don't even think you could put, but you could list a couple bullet points if you've done any volunteer work during that time. Just put community leadership.
And I know we're almost out of time, but for those people,
we're out of time. Actually,
yeah, those people that do have sabbaticals and things like that, if they do volunteer work for organizations, if they're accountants, if they volunteer to bookkeep for a nonprofit, if they're marketing, volunteer to do it for a nonprofit. If you're in hiring or HR, volunteer to help out a nonprofit occasionally. That way you can keep your skills relevant and fresh. Anyway.
Right. Aaron, thank you very much for being with us. Carol, thank you very much as always. We look forward to great information this week. If you'd like to join us for a little bit more, tomorrow morning at 9:30, the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group is going to be talking about accountability groups, how to form one, how to be part of one, how to start one, what you should do once you're in one. Your significant other should never be your accountability partner because you have to live with that person. So, but all the nuances of accountability. So you can join us tomorrow morning at 9:30. You can join us on Zoom or Facebook Live. Next Tuesday at 1 o'clock, our LinkedIn Tuesday will be with Locke Alderson. At 3 o'clock next Tuesday, the final Frisco Career Transition Workshop will be talking about resumes. Next Wednesday, the on Interviewing Wednesdays at 1 o'clock, we'll be talking about informational interviews and networking. You can join us on Zoom or on Facebook Live. I'll skip that because we're out of time here. Just as a reminder, all these sessions have been recorded. They're going to be on the Career DFW Facebook page, so you can go back and review it right here on Facebook. And I'll be uploading this presentation to the Career USA YouTube channel later this afternoon. Please check each page, subscribe to them. make things a little bit easier for you. If you're on Facebook, here's what it looks like. If you click that little red, where the red arrow is, it'll say following. What it'll do is whenever we go live, you'll get a little alert on your phone and let you know that we're currently broadcasting live. Where the blue arrow is where all the videos are located, and you'll be able to find all the videos grouped in categories by resumes, interviewing. Everything we do is a separate category. On the Career USA YouTube channel, where the green arrow is, it'll say playlist, and what will pop up is the playlist that I've created. And just underneath it where the red arrow is, it'll show view the full playlist, and what will happen is it'll pop up like this, and you'll be able to see all the past seminars we've done and what we've talked about. So just as a reminder, Career FW is a 501c nonprofit organization. We have no full or part-time employees. All of our speakers are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. We're just here to help you with your career, help you get your next great job. We survive on donations. We know you're unemployed now, but we hope that when you do land a job, that you'll think about us, that you'll help us continue so we can continue on to help other unemployed people in the future. If your company offers matching donations, please be sure to look up Career FW and allow your donation to double in size. And if you don't see our name on your list, please contact me, let me know, and I'll get it on the list. I've gotten it on several company lists already. So thank you very much for joining us. Aaron, thank you. Carol, thank you. And have a great afternoon, and we'll see everybody soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.